Hi guys, welcome back to another off the cuff. I'm I find this kind of fun because it's just like a quick 10-minute exercise, and I love talking, and I don't like listening. So it's a great it's a great format for me. I got the shirt off again, little piece of food on my chest there. It's pretty classy. Um, I'm not wearing a shirt because someone told me to wear a shirt. Anyway, topic of today is something obviously that I've been thinking of for 30 years. Does belief in God matter? So for most of that 30 years, it's been very difficult for me to think that it can't matter. I was going to argue right now for the fact that it doesn't matter. And when I say matter, I mean from a moral sense. And I think that in the moral sense, you can also talk about the civic sense. Does it make you a good citizen? Can someone who doesn't believe in God be a good citizen, for instance? Um, Feuerbach, Nietzsche, Marx, they would all argue that belief in God makes you a bad citizen. Um, I think that position's untenable. Not that it couldn't make you a bad person, it's that it usually doesn't make you a bad person. So is it neutral or is it good? I wanted to argue that it's irrelevant because that's a new position for me. That's a newer position to me. I remember talking about this, or actually teaching about this maybe a decade ago. There was an article by First Things creator, Father Richard Newhouse, and he famously argued that belief in God is necessary to be a good citizen. Um, and obviously, it was a controversial position. It's sort of a shocking position to hold in the 20th century, um, but it's certainly a lot of people could maintain it, like the old Voltaire observation that where he observed that he's glad his servants believe in God because otherwise they'd rise up and steal all his stuff and murder him. Right? That's putting it in very plain, blatant terms, which is good, thought provoking or whatever. And the sort, of course, other people. I mean, a lot of okay. Today, you could look at like a lot of movies, for instance, try to argue the opposite, that belief in God is fanatical. In fact, the reason why this is off the cuff is last night I finished rewatching the Mist series. It was a 9 or 10 episode series that came out, I don't know, maybe 2017, something like that. So I watched it a couple years ago, and then I rewatched it just the last couple days because I figured enough time had passed um, since I'd seen it. Now, it has the same themes that the earlier movie, The Mist, the 2-hour movie or whatever, that stars, what's his name? Thomas Jane. Um, okay, The Mist is Stephen King novella, and the series and the movie's at least 15 years old, I'm sure. Now, they both have some similar themes, although they characterize The Mist very differently. And both are interesting, both are compelling, and I liked both, even though they're not the same story. But one of the things that they had in common was uh, the idea of religious fanaticism, and that when things are bad, people fall to religious explanations and they do desperate things. They think that they've got to do radical things to win God's approval or save themselves or whatever. Um, I, I didn't think it was very well done in the series, the 2017 series. At least the priest who exemplified standard Christian Catholic religion, he wasn't a very good character. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't a very compelling character. His personality was quite weak. Um, and in the movie, of course, religion is personified by a crazy woman who gets all these followers to gang up on everybody else. which is a fault too. Okay, so the woman was too strong a character, and in the movie, the priest was too weak a character. Okay, interesting. Um, and what was really good about the series I found was the competing worldview. So the movie didn't really have a competing worldview, whereas the series had a very interesting competing worldview, uh, played represented by this crazy old woman who was kind of into like who's extreme environmentalist and in fact became a fanatical nature worshiper. So I thought that was really cool. Um, I might talk about this series again in some other lights because I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed um, the subversion of certain uh, motifs or the subversion of certain tropes. Um, Maybe I'll talk about that in a future occasion. So, does belief in God matter? Um, Again, I was going to argue that it doesn't, and my principal reason for arguing that it doesn't, and this has been with me for many years, even in my strongest Christian years, is that having come from a philosophical background, I know that what I mean by God is not what other people mean by God. Um, Plato, Thomas Aquinas, Saint Augustine, they don't mean by God what some, and I don't mean this in a in a universally disparaging sense, but what a medieval peasant or medieval serf or Roman serf meant by God, right? And St. Augustine spent a great deal of time studying this difference and realizing that his ideas, for instance, were inadequate to God. And obviously, if you believe in an infinite God, you know that everyone's ideas are inadequate, right? So it can be reasoned that because people who say they believe in God can mean such radically different things, then belief in God can't possibly matter because by God, people mean every variety of thing. Okay, that's a kind of compelling argument in a certain sense, but even in the few minutes or few seconds it took me to plug in my camera and this, I thought of a couple counter arguments uh, that were pretty strong. I realized that if in my own case, for instance, um, the ability to say the belief in God doesn't matter is a Christian concept because I'm inescapably socially a Christian. So what has been built up around me is a world that was given to me by Christian people, a world that believes in certain values, law, order, justice, equality of dignity, and so on. Those are Christian concepts. So you can't say we don't have an experience of a world with God and a world without belief in God. So we can't say that it doesn't matter because we have no experience of man without God. Okay. So it's easy enough for, say, feminists to say in the 21st century that men aren't needed while they have their whole everything about their lives supplied to them by men, right? Imagine how long women would last without men's technology, the men who made cell phones, the men who made the buildings, the men who made the internet, the men who made the plumbing, the houses, the blah blah blah, right? So it's a privileged thing to say we don't need men. Is it also a privileged thing to say we don't need God? Right? I have no experience of humanity without God. And I don't even think it's fair to say the most ungodly environment, say modern day China or modern day North Korea or various parts of Europe, like Northern Europe and so on, have a very low belief in God, but we don't know what it is not to have society built and perfected by theists. So anyway, there you go. Tell me what you think, guys. Bye.